So we've got a bunch of AHL stuff to go over in today's video. I wanted to talk about 3 different teams. Now I know what you're thinking. Lego, this piece of news on the screen right here, this is from yesterday. And yes, it is from yesterday. The Detroit Red Wings have assigned Austin Watson and Justin Holl to the AHL's Grand Rapids Griffins. This came after the Red Wings' loss against the New York Rangers. The very next day, Watson and Holl were sent down to Grand Rapids. Okay, great. This happened yesterday and everybody was kind of chill with it. But this story actually kind of evolved in a weird way because just one day later, the Red Wings ended up recalling Justin Holl from the AHL's Grand Rapids Griffins. This was from earlier this morning. This has to be exhausting for him. Holl needs to buy a house in Lansing with all this back and forth. The GOAT returns. Sending him down for a day was a weird move. Not sure that one day of cap movement does much. This actually was done for a few reasons. It was talked about here in another tweet. Brian Fisher asked, so the 31-day counter until they need to be waived is 31 days in the NHL and not 31 overall days? I was wondering about that. Sean Shapiro, who has done some pretty good work in the past for NHL journalism, yes, it's days on the NHL roster. So, for Austin Watson, for example, the Red Wings could call him up to play like 5 times over the next 3 months and still not hit the threshold to actually need to waive him. And this is exemplified a little bit further when you talk about this article posted onto ProHockeyRumors.com. The article talks about the Austin Watson and Justin Holl AHL assignment from yesterday, and then it goes out there and says this. Detroit announced Holl has been recalled back to the NHL roster today, suggesting that his brief demotion yesterday was solely to delay his waiver exemption expiring and to bank a bit of cap space. Watson wasn't part of the announcement and remains on assignment to Grand Rapids, so his demotion may be more permanent. Steve Yzerman is pulling off some pretty interesting and pretty smart moves, honestly. Like, as long as Justin Holl is okay with it, they communicate with him, hey, we're going to keep you on the roster, we're going to keep you here, we want you to play, but we're going to send you down to Grand Rapids for a day so that your AHL waiver exemption continues for a little bit longer, and then we'll bring you back up the next day so you can play again. Like, it's kind of an interesting move here, kind of smart, but Steve Yzerman is doing what he can do to take advantage of the cap and the rules at hand. Justin Holl, of course, though, coming back over to Detroit, has been the subject of a lot of criticism over the years, especially during his days in Toronto. When he signed the contract that he has right now with the Red Wings, there was even more criticism, honestly, because, I mean, look, he's making $3.4 million a year till the end of 25-26. Who in their right mind was going to claim Justin Holl on waivers? I mean, big right-handed defenseman, sure, I guess. And I guess he's a guy who set up that Dylan Larkin goal, so maybe there is a little bit more than meets the eye to this player, but for the most part, I think most people recognize that Justin Holl is more or less what he is. An inconsistent, not so reliable, offensively capable defenseman on the right side who's just there to fill in a body and who's making way too much money. So for Steve Yzerman, I get it. You could say it was kind of weird for him to sign the contract in the first place. It certainly was highlighted a year ago, or 2 years ago, excuse me, when it was done. But for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Justin Holl getting sent down and then quickly recalled back up, Steve Yzerman working his way around the cap? I also had 2 other AHL things that I wanted to talk about in this video, starting out with the Pittsburgh Penguins, because earlier this morning, the Penguins also announced they have assigned forward Rutger McGroarty to the AHL's Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. Yeah, that's right, Rutger McGroarty got sent down, and a lot of people would go out there and say, hey, wait a minute, isn't this the entire reason Rutger McGroarty requested a trade from the Winnipeg Jets anyway? He didn't want to get sent down, he wanted to play in the NHL, he's 20 years old, decently sized, left-handed center winger, and he was a top 15 pick in the 2022 NHL Draft who was lighting the lamp with the Michigan Wolverines last year. He was so good, and there was a lot of potential, but he didn't want to play in the AHL, right? That's the entire reason he requested out. Well, sort of. While it's true that Rutger McGroarty in the Winnipeg Jets system reportedly did not really understand nor really connect with the path that the Jets set out for him. While it's true that he was a little bit concerned as to whether or not he'd be able to develop long-term with that team, a lot of it had to do with the Winnipeg Jets' track record. It was, hey, you had guys like Ville Heinola, you had guys like Christian Vesalainen, you have guys like Brad Lambert now, who've not really been able to take that next step, not because they're not talented, but because you could very well say the Winnipeg Jets haven't done their part in developing these guys correctly. Not necessarily was his concern about going to the AHL, but a lot of it had to do with him being able to project himself as a part of that Winnipeg Jets roster. For Pittsburgh, now you could say the same thing in a way because, oh, how many young guys do the Penguins have on their team? But at the same time, you go back like 5-10 years, think about all the extra guys, the out-of-nowhere AHL guys that ended up getting called up to Pittsburgh and ended up doing well. The Jake Gensels, the Tom Kunakles, the Connor Sherrys, the Brian Rusts. Some of these guys are still on that darn team after working their way up and developing in the system. Pittsburgh has had a really good track record of developing these guys. So for Rutger McGroarty, him going over to Pittsburgh and signing there, it seems like AHL assignments were never really the problem, and more so it was the development capacity of the team itself that he was interested in. And this was also talked about here on Matt Vensel's tweet. Penguins reassigned forward Rutger McGroarty. Here's a little context. The Penguins planned to have McGroarty start out with Wilkes-Barre Scranton, but then a few guys got hurt and McGroarty showed real improvement during camp. So they let him stick around and get his first taste of the NHL. This is not surprising, nor the least bit concerning. So, for all the people in the replies saying, oh yeah, look at that, he demanded the trade and then he still ends up in the minors, like, come on. Bust, all these other things here, a lot of people going out there and poking fun. Oh, he's gonna request another trade. Trade request incoming. Like, okay. I get it, it's a little bit easy to be snarky about the situation, but for the Penguins and for McGroarty, this is a lot easier for them to go through rather than the Winnipeg Jets, because with the Jets there were a lot more concerns there just with development and with McGroarty's preference as a player. So he got sent down to the AHL. This seems to be the plan. It's not that bad, honestly, considering the fact that he did get a cup of coffee at the NHL level. He played decent minutes too, 12 minutes and 10 minutes in the 3 games that he had, so definitely not a bad resume. But McGroarty is not the only guy that got sent down to the AHL that I wanted to talk about today, because you also had yourselves Aatu from the Vancouver Canucks that got assigned to the Abbotsford Canucks here. And a lot of people are going out there and replying, oh, send Baines down too. Baines should have been sent down before Nils Åman. I think a lot of people sort of fell in love with Aatu the past few weeks here. I'm kind of included in that, to be honest. The fact that he was able to make the team, force himself into what was a third-line center spot on some nights, was super clutch, and we didn't expect that. Sure, the injuries to Pia Sutar and Dakota Joshua and the lack of Connor Garland at the start of the year too, that definitely helped Ratu's chances of starting out with the team. But when it comes to yesterday's game, he ended up playing and fumbling that breakaway. I don't want to make it seem like that breakaway chance that he had on Vasilevsky where he literally didn't even shoot. I don't want to make it seem like that's the reason he got sent down, but I think it's a little bit more clear after 3 games of him playing in the NHL in a regular season capacity that he does still have a little bit more fine-tuning in his game to go through before he is a full-time 100% capable 82-game NHL caliber guy. That's not to disrespect the work that he put in and the improvement he already exhibited, but he actually was a guy that I thought didn't play too well yesterday. Never mind the breakaway chance, I just didn't really think that he had a strong game. And if the Vancouver Canucks are trying to just fine-tune everything else and make their roster come together in a way that allows them to actually take a win, maybe sending Ratu down, keeping Baines up, and keeping Nils Åman on the team too is the move here. Who really knows? Honestly, if it were up to me, I'd probably play Ratu over Åman, but then again, Åman didn't even play yesterday. Who knows what Dakota Joshua's availability is like? If he comes back, then okay, this is totally fine. Have Ratu sent down, have Nils Åman in the press box, have Joshua play on the third line, and everything looks good, right? But for the Vancouver Canucks, I get it. They're trying to make some things happen. They're trying to fix things up. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about these 3 stories. Justin Holl getting recalled by the Detroit Red Wings. What are your thoughts on Rutger McGroarty getting sent down to the AHL's Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins? And what are your thoughts on Aatu Ratu getting sent down to the Abbotsford Canucks as well? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.